here are the things. Oh, I think I went too far. Okay. Being brought up in an Adventist home. Okay? Oh, you can't see the top of that screen. The top's the 60%. You can see the top of the bar though. Being brought up in an Adventist home was the strongest factor for being part of the church and joining the church. So about 59% of people, not 59% of people, but like very great influence and quite a bit of influence was about 59% of the influence for people being in church. The very next thing, a friend or relative, it was about 57% of them choosing to be in church. The next one, drop off to about 48, read books, journals, or other literature. Then another major drop off to 35, public evangelism meetings. And then you have another drop off, Bible studies in the home, to about 33. Visits by a pastor is down to 20% influence. So it seems like getting visited by a pastor is not the biggest thing to being part of a church. Television or radio programs, about 20% as well. Bible correspondence course, through the mail you're getting Bible studies, it's about 19%. Material on the internet was about 8%. And then other was about 22%. And the biggest factors in others were either going to a Christian school, Christian education, or having an Adventist teacher. And that made up the most significant part of the other section. Yes?
That third one, is that talking about Spirit prophecy books? Big books, journals, other literature?
Yes, it's Adventist literature.
Okay.
Yeah, so whether that's Spirit of Prophecy, whether that's a magazine like Science of the Times, etc. Okay? So, what about our church? I'm curious. What factors brought us to our church? Here are some options, and we already saw them. Let's vote. And this is how we're going to vote. This time, especially because I don't want you to fall asleep after such a good potluck, I'm going to ask you to stand depending on what really brought you or kept you or made you choose to stay here in church. Am I talking too loud? Am I talking in a good volume?
Good volume.
Yeah? I don't want you guys here to have to use hearing aids later. Okay. Okay, so if special needs brought you to church, then one of the biggest factors that you're in church, go ahead and stand up. You were in a difficult time of life, and the church reached out to you. Anyone here? No? Okay. What about a walk-in? You just kind of happen to walk in. See, this is kind of. You just happened to walk into church one day because it was in your path on your way. Anyone just walk into church? And that's why they came to church. No? All right, what about... Oh, you can't see it yet. Let me see if I can... I'm going to see if I can present it, though. Let's explain to whiteboard. That's not it. All right, we'll just keep doing it like this. That's fine. What about the pastor? Just a pastor really kind of connected with you, and that was the biggest reason why you came into church. Anyone there can relate to that? Here. No? What about visitation? Someone visited you at your house, and that was the biggest reason why you decided to end up going to church.
That's kind of hard, so, you can do a little bit, but that's...
The visitation would be different than door to door, though.
Well, I think in this list it would count. So if it was door to door, yeah. Is that the biggest reason why you came to church?
Yes.
Okay. You said stand up, right?
Yes.
Stand up.
Yes, stand up. Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. What about Sabbath school? You ended up going to Sabbath school. It just made a big impact, and that was my grandfather's story on my dad's side.
Sabbath school.
Yeah, he went to church, right? And his kids were Adventists. A few of them were studying to be pastors, but he wasn't Adventist. And one day my dad invited him to go to church with him. He ended up going to church, and he loved the Sabbath school teacher. He thought the Sabbath school teacher in that particular class did a fantastic job. And then he wanted to come back to hear that teacher next Sabbath. And he never stopped going. So for some reason, for some people, Sabbath school makes a difference. But anyone here Sabbath school? Okay. Evangelistic crusade. You part of an evangelistic event that brought you to church? Okay. There's one there.
Yeah.
That was like number 2 for us,
Okay.
after the ladies came to our house.
Okay, and the last one, you're in church primarily because of friends or relatives. Go ahead and stand. That's me, I'm standing right now. Yeah. Yeah, okay, all right. All right, so you actually guys are displaying the trends that the researchers are finding when they present this stuff too, right? My professor, who I got this research from, his name is Dr. Dr. Joseph Kidder. Some of you may be familiar with the name, maybe not. This is what he finds across churches that he goes to. And he often does the same thing, asks them to stand up and vote. And most people, 70, 95%, no matter where he's at, whether it's an urban church like our, or a rural church like ours, whether it's a small church or a big church, this is the percentage distribution that he's finding in the churches that he goes to, even in other countries, right? So primarily people are in church because of their friends and their relatives. Not because of programs, not because of outreaches, not because they have a great pastor. All those things play a part, definitely. But the reason why people stay and decide to join a church is because of their friends and their relatives. Some pretty powerful things. So let me ask you the question again. Who is the most effective evangelist in the world? Families. Yeah.
Friends.
Friends. Yeah. You are the most effective evangelist in the world. How's that? So you have networks of people that I will never be able to reach. And even if I were able to reach them, they may not stay in church. They say the first 7 minutes of someone being in a church is going to determine whether or not they might come back. Why? Because of who greets them, who they sit next to, how friendly these people are. People come to church for all types of reasons, but it's friends and family that help them to stay. And think about it, for you to make a drastic decision to join a church when you're already part of a church is a difficult one. Or maybe if you don't go to church, it's still hard to join a church. You're likely not going to do that just on the strength of knowledge alone. There's emotional connections as well. And this is what happens. So, the reason why I have a slide that says we're all full-time ministers is because the way that God reaches, let's say, mechanics, is by sending a full-time mechanic minister into that shop who will walk alongside that person. The way that God reaches people in a gym